Something was wrong in Ugweze the morning the old woman's body was found. The sun had not fully risen. The birds were quiet, and the farm, the best farm in the village, stood still like it was holding its breath. Nobody moved toward it. Nobody dared. Because the farm belonged to Adaize now, and Adaize was left-handed. In Ugweze, that meant something. It meant she was marked. It meant her mother had done something to anger the spirits. It meant you did not shake her hand. You did not eat from her pot. You did not look at her too long. The elders had said it for years. Left hand is the devil's hand. Akaekpe buehe ojo. The left hand is a bad thing. Adaize had heard it her whole life. She was used to it. She stood at the edge of the farm that morning, barefoot in the red soil, watching the women from the village whisper and point. Her mother, Loluchioma, had died 2 nights before. Malaria. Quiet and fast like a thief. One day she was coughing. The next day she was gone. Adaize did not cry in front of them. She refused. She was 22. She had strong arms and a stronger jaw. Her mother had taught her that tears were for the night, not the morning. So she stood straight and let them stare. Nemi and Wola, my mother is dead, she said to nobody, just to the air, just so it felt real. The farm was 4 plots wide. Yam, cassava, cocoyam, a small pepper garden her mother had loved. It was the best land in Ugweze because Lolochioma had worked it with everything she had since her husband died 12 years before. Now it belonged to Adaize. Except it didn't, not yet. Inside the village, her uncle was already talking. Chief Obiora Obi was a wide man. He had a belly that arrived before he did and a voice that filled any room without trying. He had 4 wives, 2 cars, and more land than he could farm, but he wanted this land. He had always wanted it. He told the men that morning, sitting under the big ukwa tree, where decisions were made. A left-handed woman cannot hold land. It is against our custom. Omenala anani eye akaipe or chicha. Tradition does not give the left hand authority. The men nodded. Some because they agreed, some because they feared him. Mama Ngozi, the old woman who sat at the edge of every gathering and said nothing for hours, looked at Obiora from under her wrapper. She said nothing, but she watched him the way a hawk watches a rat. Adaize did not know that meeting was happening. She was too busy opening her mother's box, looking for burial money, when her hand touched something cold and hard at the bottom. A clay pot, sealed with black thread, with her name written on it in her mother's handwriting. Adaize, Maoge Odimma. Open it when the time is right. She put it back. The time was not right yet. But somewhere, her uncle was already counting the farm as his, and the story had already started moving in a direction nobody could stop. The boss from Onitsha came in the afternoon, coughing dust and noise. Only 3 people got off at the Ugweze junction. An old trader, a woman with a baby, and a man with a leather bag and clean shoes that had no business being on a red dirt road. The man was Chukwuemeka Nwosu. Everyone called him Emeka. He was 26. He had been in Lagos for 3 years, working at a printing press, saving money, learning how the big city moved. He came back because his father was sick. Simple reason, but Ugweze never let reasons stay simple. The first thing he noticed when he entered the village was the quiet. This kind quiet no dey make sense, he thought in his head. Too still, like someone had pressed pause on the whole place. He stopped a young boy running past. Nah, wetin happen for here? The boy looked at him with big eyes. Lolochioma don die, and her daughter dey fight her uncle for the farm. Emeka nodded slowly. He knew the Obi family. He knew Obiora by reputation. Everyone did. He didn't know Adaize. Not really. She was younger than him. When he left for Lagos, she was just a girl who walked to the stream with her mother. Quiet, left-handed. The one the other children avoided, like she carried something contagious. He went to his father's house, dropped his bag, and sat with the old man for an hour. His father's chest made a sound like a squeezed bottle every time he breathed. Emeka held his hand and didn't speak. That evening, he went to pay his condolences at the Obi compound. He brought kola nuts and a small envelope of money, the way it was done. He entered the yard and saw her immediately. Adaize was sitting on a low stool, receiving visitors. Her back straight, a wrapper tied above her chest. Women around her were crying. She was not. Their eyes met across the yard. She looked at him like she was trying to place his face. He looked at her like something had just shifted in his chest, and he didn't have a word for it yet. He greeted the family, spoke to the right people, and as he was leaving, she was standing at the gate. "You be Emeka and Wasu?" she said, not a question. "Yes," he paused. "Sorry for your loss." "Edalu." "Thank you." She said it flat, no performance. He liked that. He didn't know why. "Your uncle," he said carefully. "I heard say they talk about the farm." Her jaw tightened, just slightly. "You heard right. Wetin you go do?" She looked at him straight. "Fight him." No fear in her voice, no hesitation. Emeka stood there, second too long. Then he nodded, said nothing more, and walked away. But he turned back once to look at her. She was already looking at him.
3 days after the burial, Adaize went back to the farm. She went alone. She always did things alone. It had been that way since she was a child, when other children refused to play with her, and she learned that alone was not the same as lonely. The soil was still soft from the last rain. The yam stalks stood tall. Her mother's pepper garden was starting to dry at the edges because nobody had watered it. Adaize got on her knees and started pulling weeds. She walked for 2 hours before she heard footsteps behind her. She turned fast, ready. It was Emeka. He was wearing simple trousers and a short-sleeved shirt. He was carrying a cutlass and a small bucket of water. "Gwami waiting ijubia ebe. Tell me why you came here," she said, eyes narrow. "I came to help." "I no ask for help." "I know." He set the bucket down. "But the pepper garden they dry, and I get 2 hands." She stared at him. "And I have 2 also." "Yes, but you get 4 plots to handle." He held her gaze. "Let me water the pepper. You no have to talk to me." She almost sent him away. She opened her mouth to do it. But the pepper garden was dying, and she was tired. And something about the way he said, "You no have to talk to me," like he understood that she didn't owe him anything, made her turn back to her weeds without another word. They walked in silence for almost an hour. It was the most comfortable Adaize had felt with another person since her mother died. "Now, wow," she thought to herself, "this one different." As the sun began to tilt west, Emeka sat under the small neem tree at the edge of the farm. He opened his bag and brought out 2 wraps of akara his mother had made. He held one out to her without speaking. She looked at it. She looked at him. She took it with her left hand. He did not flinch. He did not move his eyes away. He did not do what everyone in the village did, that small flicker of disgust disguised as nothing. He just bit into his own akara and looked at the field. Adaize sat down 2 feet away from him. She ate. "Why you come back from Lagos?" she asked after a while. "My father dey sick." "Sorry." She paused. "You go back?" "Maybe." He glanced at her sideways. "Why?" "I dey ask because you look like somebody who don't see better life and no one stay for village." He laughed, just small. "You know me like that already?" "I watch people." She finished her akara. "It's how I survive." He nodded slowly, quiet for a moment. Then, "That sealed pot, the one your mother left you, waiting there inside." Her body stilled. "How you know about that?" Her voice dropped low. "Ikemna told me. He said your mama give you 1 pot before she died, sealed, with your name." She said nothing for a long moment. The birds moved above them. "I no open am yet," she said finally. "Why?" She looked at him. "Because I dey fear wetin I go find." He nodded, like he understood that kind of fear, like he had carried something similar. Neither of them said anything else, but they sat there until the sun went down. The meeting happened on a Saturday. Chief Obiora called it himself, the way powerful men call things, without asking, without warning, just announcing. He sent word through 3 different men, and by morning, half the village had gathered under the Ukwa tree. Adaize found out 20 minutes before it started. Her neighbor, a small woman named Mama Ibeli, knocked on her door, breathing fast. "Ada, runs don't start oh. Your uncle don't call elders meeting. He say he wants to settle the farm matter today." Adaize tied her wrapper and walked out. Emeka was already at the edge of the crowd when she arrived. He saw her coming. Something in his face shifted. That look a person gets when they want to step in but know they have to wait. She walked to the center of the gathering. She did not wait at the edge. The crowd parted. Some because they respected her, most because they didn't want her left hand near them. Chifobiora sat in a carved wooden chair like it was a throne. He wore a full traditional attire, coral beads, red cap, the performance of authority. Ndibenyi, he began, people of our community. His voice rolled smooth. We are here because of a matter of custom. My brother's wife, God rest her, has left behind land, fine land, but she made an error in her burial wishes. She said this land should go to her daughter. Murmuring in the crowd. Our custom is clear, Obiora continued. Land goes to sons. When there are no sons, it goes to the nearest male family. That is me. More murmuring. Furthermore, he raised a fat finger. This girl is left-handed. She carries iheojo on her body. She should not hold sacred family land. Omenala anagienye akaekpeike. Adaize's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs. She stepped forward. My mother walked that land, she said. Her voice was steady, but her jaw was tight. She walked it for 12 years without any of you. She fed me from that land. She paid school fees from that land. Nobody from this family sent even 1 naira when we were hungry. Obiora waved his hand. Girl, sit down. The men are speaking. You will hear me. Her voice rose, not a shout, controlled fire. Nami anwula. My father is dead. My mother is dead. I am what they left behind, and I will not sit down. The crowd was fully silent now. Obiora's face changed, cold. Somebody should take this child and explain to her how things work, he said quietly. That quiet was more dangerous than shouting. Then a voice from the back. She has said nothing wrong. Emeka, standing straight, looking directly at Obiora. The chief turned to look at him, measured him. Nwosi's son, you don't come from Lagos, come teach us our culture. Emeka said nothing, just stood there. But the crowd saw it. Everyone saw it. And Obiora saw something he did not like, that this young man was going to be a problem. What he didn't know yet was how big a problem. Because Emeka had spent the previous evening talking to Mama Ngozi, and Mama Ngozi had told him something about that sealed clay pot that changed everything. That night, Emeka's mother called him inside. She closed the door. She sat across from him at the small wooden table where they used to eat when he was a boy. She folded her hands the way she did when she was about to say something she had been holding for a while. Leave that girl alone, she said quietly. Emeka looked at her. Mama, listen to me. Obiora is not somebody you want to cross. Your father is sick. We have nothing to fight with. And that girl, she lowered her voice, that girl carries trouble like a rapper. Since she was born, this village has not rested. Because of her left hand, Mama, you know that is. I know what I know, she said firmly. You have a future. Go back to Lagos. Let village matters stay in the village. Emeka sat back. He looked at his hands on the table. He thought about Adaize. Standing in that crowd, voice steady, shaking hands hidden against her thighs. He had seen her press them down so nobody would see the fear. He had noticed. She is fighting alone, he said. That is her cross. Mama, he looked up. If it was you, if Papa was gone and somebody was trying to take your house, wouldn't you want one person to stand? His mother said nothing. Just one person, he said again, soft. She turned her face away. That meant the argument was over and she had lost it. Emeka left early the next morning and went to find Mama Ngozi. The old woman lived at the northern edge of the village in a compound surrounded by bitter leaf and uziza plants. She was sitting outside when he arrived, grinding pepper with a stone, like she had been expecting him. Sit, she said without looking up. He sat. She kept grinding. You want to know about the pot? Yes, Mama. Chioma bu ezigbo nwanyi. Chioma was a good woman, she said. She knew she was going to die before she died.
Sick people always know. And before she went, she came to me. Mama Ngozi stopped grinding. She looked at Emeka with eyes that had seen 60 years of village life. She told me what is inside that pot. She said open it when the land case starts. She said her daughter will know when the time is right. The old woman picked up her grinding stone again. That time is now. What is inside it? Emeka leaned forward. That is not for me to say. It is for Adaize to open. Emeka exhaled. Will it help her case? Mama Ngozi looked at him sideways. It will end Obiora. He sat with that for a moment. And you, she squinted at him. Why do you care so much about this girl? You don't know her before? Emeka was quiet, then honest. I don't fully understand it myself. Mama Ngozi almost smiled. That is how love starts. Before your head knows, your body don't already decide. He stood to leave. Emeka, her voice stopped him. He turned. Emeka, standing with her will cost you something, real something. Ekwere, you agree? He held her gaze. Akwere mo. Yes, I agree. He walked back toward the village. He didn't know yet what the cost would look like, but he had just signed for it with his own mouth. Adaize sat on the floor of her mother's room that night. Emeka was outside by the door, giving her space but staying close. She had agreed to open it now, not because she wasn't afraid anymore, but because she was tired of the fear being bigger than her. She brought the pot out from the bottom of the box. It was small, red clay, smooth from being handled. Her mother had held this thing many times. She could feel it in the warmth the clay still held, which made no sense physically but felt completely true. The black thread was wound 7 times around the neck of the pot. She unwound it slowly. Then she lifted the sealed top. Inside, a folded piece of paper, old and soft from age, a small iron key on a rust-spotted ring, and below those, a rolled document tied with faded red ribbon. She took the paper first. Her mother's handwriting was large and uneven because Lolo Chioma had learned to write late in life, but every letter was careful, like she had taken her time. My Ada, if you are reading this, I am gone. Do not cry too long. I did not cry when your father died and God punished me for the pride. So cry small, then read this. Adaize laughed, just once, short and sharp. Then she wiped her eye with the back of her wrist. She kept reading. The document in this pot is the original land deed, the one your father registered before he died, with the government office in Enugu. He registered it in my name, then in your name, both of us. Your uncle Obiora knows this document exists. He has been looking for it for 10 years. He told your father that it was lost during a fire in his house, but your father did not trust him. Your father gave it to me to hide. I hid it here. Now I give it to you. Adaize's hands were shaking badly now. The key is for the box in Pastor Noachukwu's church, bottom room. It has a copy of the same document and your father's signed statement naming you as inheritor. 2 witnesses signed it. Both are still alive. Mama Ngozi was one. The other is a man called Boniface Eze in Awka. She stopped reading. She sat very still. Then she called out, Emeka. He came in immediately. She held up the rolled document. He looked at her face first. He saw what was there, not joy exactly, something older than joy, vindication. My mother knew, she said. Her voice was thick. She knew everything. She planned this. She kept this safe for me for years. Emeka sat across from her, close. He didn't speak. My uncle has been lying about this land since my father died. Her eyes were dark and clear at the same time. He knew the deed existed. He told them it burned. He has been lying. You have the proof now, Emeka said quietly. She looked at the document in her hands. Nemi, my mother. Then she looked at Emeka, this man who had been sitting by her door all evening, who had watered her pepper garden, who had stood up in front of the whole village. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Straight, no decoration. He held her eyes. "Because you deserve somebody in your corner." The room was quiet. Something passed between them that had no name yet, but it was already too late to call it nothing.
The next morning moved fast. Adaize went to Pastor Nwachukwu's church before sunrise. The pastor was an old man with sleep still in his eyes, but when she showed him the key and said her mother's name, he became fully awake. He led her to the bottom room. The box was there, small, wooden, locked. The key fit. Inside, the copy of the land deed, exactly as her mother described, and a sealed envelope with her father's handwriting on the front, for Adaize if trouble comes. She put the envelope in her wrapper without opening it. That was for later. She came out of the church and Emeka was waiting by the gate. She showed him everything. He read the deed carefully, twice. His face stayed quiet, but his eyes were doing the work of someone who grew up watching men use paperwork to bury other men. "This is enough," he said, "but Obiora will say it's fake. Then we get Mama Ngozi and we find Boniface Eze in Awka." Emeka looked at her. "Awka is 4 hours away. Then we leave now." He blinked. Now? She was already moving. They took the morning bus from the Ugwueze junction, sat side by side. The bus was crowded, hot, smelling of fried fish and engine smoke. Adaize sat by the window and held the document against her chest like they could grow legs and run. Emeka bought 2 bottles of Fanta from a roadside seller at the first stop and handed her one. She took it with her left hand. He clinked his bottle against hers, simple, normal, like it was nothing. She turned to look at him. This man, she thought. In Awka, they found Boniface Eze through his church. He was retired now, fat and slow, but his memory was perfect. When Adaize told him who she was, his eyes went soft. "Na gibwe zigbo madu. Your father was a good man," he said. He was ready to testify. He said he had been waiting for someone to come for 12 years. On the bus back, Adaize was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "My uncle sat across from my mother at her husband's funeral. He cried. He held her hand. She looked at the window. He was already planning to take from her." Emeka said nothing. "Blood," she said quietly. "Obodoize nolu. The kingdom eats its own neck." He looked at her profile, the sharp jaw, the way she held all that weight without buckling. He wanted to say something big, but it wasn't the right moment. So instead he said, "Adima, are you okay?" She turned. Their faces were close in the narrow seat. "No," she said, "honest, but I will be." He nodded. Their shoulders were touching. Neither of them moved away. When they got back to Ugwueze, Ikeva was waiting at the junction with his face tight. "Obiora don't hear say una go Awka. He knows something is happening. He dey move tonight to file his own claim at the local government office." Adaize gripped the document harder. "Then we move first," Emeka said. But Ikenna looked at Emeka with something strange in his eyes, something guilty, something that looked like a man who had already done something he couldn't undo. The village assembly was called for Thursday. This time, it was not Obiora's meeting, it was the community's. The kind of meeting that happened when something had grown too big for one person to control, when the thing in the middle of the road was too large to walk around. Word had spread about the deed, about Awka, about Boniface Eze, about the clay pot. Half the village was ready to hear it. The other half had already been paid by Obiora to shout the right things at the right moments. Adaize knew this. Emeka knew this. They had walked into harder rooms. The assembly started at noon under the Ukwa tree. 200 people. Noise at a marketplace. The oldest elder, a dry, thin man called Mazi Akweze, sat in the center and held his staff. Obiora arrived with 5 men behind him like a shield. Adaize arrived with Emeka on one side, Mama Ngozi on the other, and the documents under her arm. Mazi Akweze raised his staff. Silence. "We are not here to shout," the old man said. "Isi oji bundu. The head of Kola is life. We speak truth here or we do not speak at all." Obiora spoke first. He was smooth. He talked about custom, about tradition, about left hands and curses, about what the village had always known. He was good at this. He had practiced this speech in his head for years. Then Adeze stood. She placed the document on the table in front of Mazia Kweze. My father registered this land before he died in Enugu, government office. His name, my mother's name, my name. She paused. The deed was not burned in any fire. My uncle has been lying about this for 12 years. Noise erupted. Obiora stood. That document is Boniface Eze of Awka signed as witness. She cut through him clean. He is alive. He is ready to come here and confirm. More noise. Then Mama Ngozi stood. The crowd went quiet. When Mama Ngozi stood, people listened, not because they were told to, because she had never been wrong. Asibu chichong kindina to nihe ananabata. Lies are the wish of those who are comfortable receiving them, she said in Igbo, slowly. She turned to face Obiora directly. I was in that room when Chukwudiobi signed this paper. I held the kola. I prayed. You, she pointed her old finger at him, you came to that same room 1 week later and told your brother that you had a better copy for safekeeping, and the original disappeared that same week. Dead silence. Obiara's jaw was tight. Old woman, you are confused. Obuhimika raraujo. I am not the one who should be afraid, she said calmly. The crowd turned, not all at once, but steadily, like water finding its level. Mazia Kweze examined the documents for 30 minutes in front of everyone. He asked questions. He was careful. Then he set down his staff. He looked at Obiora, and Obiora, for the first time, could not hold the old man's eyes. But before Mazia Kweze could speak, someone shouted from the back of the crowd. It was Ikenna. And what he said next split the day open like an axe through soft wood.
Emeka knew about this document 2 days before he told anyone. Ikenna's voice was loud, shaking, like he was scared of himself. He found out from Mama Ngozi, and he said nothing to the elders. He went with the girl to Akwa behind everyone's back to build the case. The crowd turned to look at Emeka. Obiora straightened in his chair, a slow smile. So, the Nwasu boys in this game too. Emeka stood still. He looked at Ikenna, his oldest friend, the man he had chased lizards with as a boy, who had eaten from his mother's pot 100 times. Ikenna could not look back at him. So that's what that face was, Emeka thought, at the junction. That was a man who had already sold me. He understood it. He didn't like it, but he understood. Obiora was powerful. Ikenna had a young wife and a new baby and no savings. Fear made men do things they would cry about later. Emeka turned back to face the assembly. Everything Ikenna said is true, he said clearly. I knew. I chose to help Adeze because she had the right to that help. You manipulated this process, Obiora said, standing. This assembly should be suspended. This man interfered. I helped a woman recover her mother's legal property, Emeka said, still calm, still straight. If that is interference, then I accept the charge. Your father, Obiora said quietly, the kind of quiet that was a threat. He is sick. He needs money. It would be a shame if his treatment became harder to access. The crowd heard it. Everyone heard it. Adeze stepped forward. What you are doing now is the face of wickedness. Emeka put his hand gently on her arm, just a touch. Stay. Not to stop her, just to say, I'm here. She stayed. Mazia Kweze stood. He had heard enough. Chief Obiora Obi, he said, each word landed heavy. You have stood in this assembly before and told us this land deed was lost in a fire. We have now seen this deed with our eyes. We have heard from a living witness. We will send word to Enugu to confirm it formally. He looked at the crowd. Until that confirmation, this land remains with Adeze Obi, and any attempt to enter or claim that farm will be treated as a crime against this community. Obiora opened his mouth. Sit down, Mazia Kweze said it soft, the worst way to say it. Obiora sat. After the assembly scattered, Emeka walked home slowly. His chest was tight, not from losing, from the cost of not losing. His mother was at the door when he got home. She looked at his face, read it. Ikenna, she said. Yes. She pulled him inside without another word. She made him food. She didn't say, I told you so. She had raised him better than that. But outside, Adaeze stood at the edge of the Obi compound alone. She looked at the farm, her mother's farm, the pepper garden, the yam stalks. She thought about the price Emeka paid today. A friend, maybe more trouble coming from Obiora. His sick father pulled into the mess. She thought about what she had cost him without even trying. And for the first time since her mother died, she cried. Not small, not hidden, fully.
6 weeks later, the confirmation came from Enugu. A government letter, stamped, signed, clear as morning light. The land deed was authentic. The registration was valid. Adaeze Chidima Obi was the rightful owner of the 4-plot farm in Ugwueze, as recorded on the 15th of March 1961 by her father, Chukwudi Obi. Chief Obiora received a formal warning. He did not fight it publicly. Men like him didn't fight in the open when the open had turned against them. They retreated and waited for another angle. But Ugwueze was watching him now with different eyes. And a man who can no longer move in the shadows is a diminished man. Ikenna came to Ikenna's house one evening. He stood at the door with his cap in his hands. He couldn't find the words for the first 2 minutes. Ikenna let him stand there. He didn't make it easier. Finally, I was afraid, Ikenna said. Tom Meher, forgive me. Ikenna looked at him for a long moment. I forgive you, he said, but it will take time before I forget. He stepped aside. Come in and eat. Ikenna cried at the table. Ikenna ate without saying anything. That was its own kind of mercy. On the evening of the day the letter arrived, Adaeze walked to Ikenna's compound. She knocked. He opened the door. She was holding a small pot, not the clay pot, a regular one, and it smelled like pepper soup. I cooked, she said. Matter of fact. Biari Henry, come and eat. He almost smiled. You cooked for me. Don't let the food get cold with your questions. He followed her to her compound. They sat outside by the fire she had made at the edge of the farm. The pepper soup was good. Goat meat, strong pepper, the kind of thing that warmed from the inside. They ate in the easy silence that had become their language. After a while, she said, My mother always said, the left hand is not weak, it is just different, and different things hold different powers. He looked at her. She was right, she said. This hand, she raised her left hand and looked at it, has held a cutlass, has farmed this soil, has opened a pot that saved my land, has fed you tonight. She closed her hand into a loose fist. I don't think it's cost. It's not, Ikenna said. Simple. She looked at him. The fire made shadows on his face. Thank you, she said. Not small, full. Odimma. It is fine, he said. They were quiet again. Then he said, when I go back to Lagos. She looked at him fast. Intwa unlokwa ba Enugu ni. Do you want to come back to Enugu? After. Properly. Ino leg ba anyone we lawachi. Can you stay while I leave and come back? She held his gaze. How long? 6 months. Maybe 8. I need to close my work there. She considered it. And when you come back? When I come back, I want to talk about something more serious. She looked at the fire. Her jaw moved the way it did when she was deciding something. Odimma, she said finally. It is fine. He smiled. First real full smile she had seen from him. The farm was behind them. The pepper garden, fully recovered now, rustled in the evening breeze. Moral lesson. What belongs to you cannot be taken by those who use tradition as a tool, but you must hold it, document it, protect it, and be willing to fight for it. The left hand that the world calls cursed may be the very hand that holds your inheritance. And the people who stand with you when standing costs them something, those are the ones worth keeping. In Ugwueze, they still say,
Aka eke, nuere ikenya. The left hand has its own power. The end.